As most of you know, I've been spending basically the last 4 years paying off $110,000 of debt. And about 2 years ago, I created this YouTube channel as a way to keep me on track and as a way to share with others how I've been, paying down all my debt so quickly. Well, tomorrow, I will be finishing my debt. I will be giving them a really big check, as you will see if you watch the next video. In this video, I'm going to answer a couple questions that I've gotten, and I want to look back and talk about what I've learned over the past couple years. My name is Caleb, and you're watching The Future Millionaire Teacher. Okay, hold on. Before we get going, I realized that I forgot to tell you guys to subscribe. I'm almost to 550 subscribers, so listen, I know that most of you that are watching are not subscribed to this channel. So while I'm taking my dogs out for a walk, while you're watching the video, just hit the subscribe button and then we'll keep going on, okay? Thanks. Today, I'm in the workroom here at my apartment complex, and it's got an awesome view of downtown Fort Worth, and there's never anybody in here, and the dogs won't bother me here, so I just decided to make the video in here. I don't know, I like working in here because I like the view. Over the past 4 years, I paid off $110,000 of debt. It's been student loans, student loan interest, credit cards, a car, a French horn, medical bills, and a loan that my mom and dad gave me. And over the past 4 years, I've made videos talking about how I budget, where I cut corners, how I earn extra cash, and different ways that you can look at making your budget. But I want to talk about the most important thing that I've learned so far. The most important thing about getting out of debt was becoming super focused. Dave Ramsey calls it gazelle intense. Every decision that I made was looked at through the lens of paying off my debt. Every single night before I went to sleep, I thought about paying off my debt. Every single time I was eating food or driving my car, I was thinking, how does this impact my budget? Can I get a better deal on my groceries? Can I get better fuel efficiency to spend less money on gas? Every decision that I made was looked at through the lens of paying off my debt. It's the gazelle intensity, it's the focus, it's the determination of thinking about this debt every single day. There literally was not a single day that went by in the past 46 months where I didn't think about paying off my debt. And as the process went on, I got better and better and better. My first budget was a nightmare. My first couple of monetary decisions were terrible. In fact, I actually, in the past 46 months, bought a car and a French horn. I took out more debt while I was paying off my debt. It was a process. It took months and months and years to figure out how to become very efficient with paying off my debt. And after 46 months, after years of saying no and not going out to eat and taking my lunch to work, after years of that, I am finally about to have a net worth of zero starting tomorrow. I will owe zero people $0. So here are some of the questions that I've gotten over the past couple of days about my debt journey. So my friend Lillian asked, what was my fed up moment? Dave Ramsey calls it, being sick and tired of sick and tired. The moment that I realized that I was in way over my head in debt. I actually saw the Dave Ramsey book, Total Money Makeover, from my friend Ashley. Her and her now husband, Basil, I went to school with them and I would talk with them about this Dave Ramsey thing. And even though I was in grad school, I didn't have a job, I quickly realized that I was gonna be in nearly $100,000 of debt by the time I got out of college. And I remember sitting at my desk, tallying all these numbers up in my head thinking, I'm gonna be in debt forever unless I figure it out. I started and got a $500 emergency account, and I had to live on my credit card because I didn't have a full-time job. And once I got my full-time job and I got my first paycheck in September of 2016, I made a very conscious decision that I would focus and make it my goal, my life purpose for the next foreseeable future to pay off my debt. So I would say that my fed up moment was in January of 2016, but I wasn't able to get, a full-time job with a real paycheck until September. So there were 8 months where I was just very aware of how in debt I was and how much money I didn't have. And that 8 months of me not having a job and me not having a paycheck, I think really motivated me to hit the ground running hard and start off really aggressively when I did finally get a paycheck in September. That brings me to my next question. Benjamin, who is a buddy of mine from grad school, he asked, what kept me motivated? What kept me on track? What kept me patient? There's a phrase that we would always use when we were backpacking about climbing a mountain, right? It's like, we would always tell ourselves, how do you eat this elephant? How do you eat an elephant? Eat an elephant one bite at a time, one bite at a time. So I understood the concept that it was going to be a long haul. It was going to be a multi-year journey. So it was all about little teeny tiny victories. I remember anytime I would pay like $1,000, I'd make $1,000 payment. I thought, this is 1%. This is 1% of my goal right here. 1% is right now. And then if I was able to make, a $1,500 payment, well, I've got less than $100,000 of debt now. So 1,500, that's actually like more than 1.5%. That might even be closer to 1.7%. Literally taking it like 1% by 1% by 1% the entire way. And then as I got going, I got better at turning my budget into a game where could I slim down? Where could I cut the fat? Could I, spend a little less on groceries here? Could I spend a little less on gas here? It became a game of tiny, tiny little victories. And I think that's what kept me on track through the past couple of years. Sean, who is now a former student of mine, asked, what will I do to become the millionaire teacher and not the future millionaire teacher? As many of you know, I follow Dave Ramsey, and he suggests that you put 15% of your income into mutual funds. Most mutual funds average 8 to 12% growth annually. So if you take 15% of my income right now and extrapolate that over the next couple of years, I hopefully will be a millionaire sometime in my mid to late 50s. Now that's obviously assuming that I don't invest anymore, which hopefully as my career goes on, I'll be able to invest more as a percentage of my salary, and hopefully I can get in the market while it's still kind of low during the COVID time, and that will help accelerate my growth once the economy starts to recover. But how will I become the millionaire teacher? Through responsible and conservative investments and being very, very patient. One of the kids I met from drum corps has two questions. Camilo asked, what was the hardest part of this entire journey? I would say, in all honesty, the hardest part was learning how to say no. It was really difficult because in the beginning, I remember I finally had a paycheck, and so I would want to go out to eat with my coworkers for lunch. And then on the weekends, I would want to go out and grab some drinks. And then I would want to drive, because I was living in Houston, I would want to drive to Dallas every weekend and go see my friends. It was just learning how to prioritize, so that way what I did spend money on, I really valued it. So the hardest part was just learning how to say no. And then he goes on to ask, what's one thing that I really wanted to splurge on? Well, if anybody knows me, they know that I'm a massive sports fan, specifically soccer. So part of the process for me was learning how to prioritize what I wanted, so that way when I did say yes, it meant a lot. So I prioritized that I would buy, for example, FC Dallas season tickets. But what that meant that I had to say no to was I had to say no to buying jerseys to all my favorite clubs. And I couldn't buy a Minnesota Vikings jersey. I couldn't buy a Liverpool jersey because, those are $100, $115, $130 if you buy a nice jersey. One of the difficult parts was just learning where the line was and how to draw that line. I definitely want to buy lots of gear for my favorite teams now that I'm debt free. I'm looking forward to it. Another one of my former students, Stephanie, she asks about weighing the pros and cons of keeping a large sum of money or using that large sum of money to pay off a debt that you have. Again, I go back to what Dave Ramsey would say. For example, if you have $10,000 in your bank account and you have a car note that's $12,000, it makes all the sense in the world to take most of that $10,000 that you have and put it down on your car note. Obviously, again, Dave would say, while you're paying off debt, only keep $1,000 in the emergency fund and take the $9,000 and put it on your car note. Now you've only got $3,000 in debt. Now that brings up a really good discussion. In fact, some people messaged me about it, about how I weigh the pros and cons of having an emergency fund. And I know that I've talked about this before in other videos, but I'll talk about it again. I always had my $1,000 in my emergency fund, and I only needed to dip into that twice, both for car-related issues actually. But also, as I get paid every month, I have the excess money that I'm going to be spending on my debt, about $2,300. After I take out my minimum payments, it was usually about $2,000. So I let that $2,000 sit in my bank account for the entire month. So I effectively had $2,000 for loans, $1,000 emergency fund. I effectively had a $3,000 emergency fund. And then the day before I got paid, I would take all of this $2,000, put it towards debt, and then the next day I would have replenished it with my next paycheck. So even though I only had $1,000 officially as my emergency fund, I effectively had more money that was liquid in my bank account. My buddy Chad asked, what percentage of my money is now going to go into investments versus savings? I'm talking about this just a little bit. 15% is what Dave recommends that you invest or that you put into your savings. For this purpose, we'll call our savings our retirement money, the investments that you put away and you can't touch for years and years and years and years. And then we'll call savings, what he calls savings, we'll call it the emergency fund. I plan on putting away 15% every month into investments, mutual funds, 403b since I'm a teacher, but other sort of long-term investments. And then on top of that, for my emergency fund, I'll put away $500 every month until I get to 6 months of expenses, which for me is gonna be around $10,000. That's kind of the ballpark number that I've set. So I'm gonna put all of my 15% into long-term tied up investments, and I'm gonna keep $500 a month and build it over the course of the next year and a half or so. And the last question that I get is, what's the biggest piece of advice that you can give? Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, the best piece of advice that I can give is that if you want to get out of debt, it has to become your number one focus, your number one goal for everything. Like I said before, I viewed everything through the lens of getting out of debt. And now that I'm about to be out of debt, I don't know what it's gonna feel like. I'm looking forward to waking up and owing 0 people, $0. I'm looking forward to waking up and going out to eat. I'm looking forward to waking up and buying some new clothes. Overall, I've learned a ton. I hope that these videos have helped you. And going forward, I will keep talking about various things that I will be encountering financially, starting off my savings account, my emergency fund. I do have one medical bill that I'm letting sit aside. I'm hoping that I can show you guys how to settle your medical bills for less. But other than that, that's it. I'm super excited to write one really big check tomorrow. As always, thanks for watching.